Hey everybody, welcome to Do You Believe on Paranormal Zone TV. I want to thank you all for being here with us tonight, and I hope you're going to enjoy the show. Please, for those who may be watching for the first time, if you would please subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate it. And also, don't forget to give the show a like. I'd appreciate that as well. Well, tonight, I'm really looking forward to my guest, Ross Allison. He is a ghost hunter and he is an author. Now, his books can be purchased at Amazon.com, and his website is aghosthunter.org. I have pictures here of several books. Now, just to let you know, and I'm really excited about this, tonight we're airing his book, My Haunted Journal. He has graciously accepted to come back and do haunted ships and lighthouses, a show I've always wanted to do. And also, he and David Weatherly have written a book called Haunted Toys, and they will be back on March 2nd for that show. Now, with that, everyone, let's welcome Ross to the show. Hey, Ross, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. And so let's talk about your latest, this is one of your books anyway, My Haunted Journal. Now, why did you feel a need to write this book?
Well, a lot of it came from doing the research myself in ghost hunting. And I found that when I was doing these interviewing processes with clients, that they tend to elaborate on their experiences. And a lot of this was because they had an experience and they wanted you to believe that they had that experience. And so I thought, I really want the raw material. I want to know what happened, not as what they believe happened as they continue to tell their story over and over again and learn to tell that story better and better. So I thought, it's really important that we get these people that are having these experiences to be journaling their experiences, because then you have that raw material. You know exactly what they experienced at that moment. And so I really started pushing journaling for my investigation team and for clients. And so that, inspired me to we really got to get the word out there. A lot of these groups aren't having their clients journaling. And so I thought, let's put this book together and see where it goes. And it finally took me a while, and I finally got the book out.
Now, does that mean that you aren't inclined to help somebody if they haven't journaled their experiences, or do you tell them before I come in, you need to do this for so long and then call me back?
Well, we always encourage our clients to journal, even if it's from the phone call from there on. Please journal. We even ask them, to try and go back and journal the dates and times and your experiences as detailed as you can remember. Because a lot of times what helps with journaling as well is it helps us to determine if there's a pattern to the activity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you're going to go in and do an investigation as a paranormal investigator, you really need to know if there is that pattern, because it's going to better your chances of actually capturing some phenomena to support their experiences. So, yes, we always encourage our clients to journal, but it's not going to discourage us from doing an investigation, because unfortunately sometimes they don't have the time, and we really believe that there could possibly be something going on. So, again, it's trying to collect as much data as possible, as much data as they're willing to give us as well. But I've always expressed to our clients, this is the most important thing. If you can do this from this moment on, it's really going to help us out.
Mm-hmm. And it also included in your book, you state that there are lists of things that many people mistake for hauntings of the spirit world. What would those be?
Oh, there's a bit out there, but I think it's funny that a lot of people, when they see a lot of these shows, movies, and now all these television shows, they start to get it in their head that maybe they might be living in a haunted place. And so, of course, you have those folks that once they think that their house is haunted, everything becomes paranormal. So they start blaming everything on the ghosts. Then you have overactive imaginations. People that want to believe that their home is haunted. Then you also have folks that unfortunately just want a lot of attention, and so they make up stories that their place is haunted. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, if they have any strange experience in their life or on the property, then of course they want to label it as ghosts when it could be other types of phenomena or even possibly be explained.
So what would those mistakes be? What mistakes would be for thinking that their house is haunted?
Here's a great example. I was invited to this elderly woman's house, and she claimed that she was experiencing some paranormal phenomena. In fact, the most that she was claiming was that this demon kept scratching on her walls, and she felt that this demon was after her. And so whenever we do an investigation, we start with our walkthrough. And so we go in, we determine, whether this is a safe environment for the team to come into. We interview the client and determine whether, it's legit. And as we're sitting down and doing the interviewing process, all of a sudden we hear the scratching on the walls. And, I'm curious. I'm looking around, what the hell's that? And she grabs, the arms of her chair, and, she starts shaking, and, she's like screaming. She's like, "Oh my God, can you hear it? Can you hear it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can hear something. I'm not sure what that is." And it's coming from behind me. So I decide, as an investigator, got to check this out. So I get up from the couch and I start looking, behind the wall to see if it's coming from on the other side of the wall. Nothing there. And I decide, to look, under the couch to see what's going on. And here's her dog under the couch scratching himself as he's leaning up against the wall.
Oh.
And so I brought this to her attention. I said, I'm afraid to bring this to your attention, but I think it's your dog that's causing those scratching noises. And, she just looked at me puzzled. And she's like, "Oh, no, it can't be my dog. No, it's not my dog." And I said, "Well, that's exactly what he was doing when we had that experience. Is, he was just leaning up against the back wall, scratching himself under the couch." And so she's like, "Oh, no. My dog doesn't scratch himself. He'll pet himself, but he doesn't scratch himself." Yeah.
Now, do you believe in demons?
I keep an open mind, but in the line of work that we try to pursue is, we don't try to bring religion into it. We try to be respectful.
No, but do you believe in demonic entities?
Well, I believe that there is good energy and negative energy, definitely, but I don't necessarily want to believe that it's demons, personally, for me.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever come across a very negative energy in one of your houses that you've investigated?
I've come across, yes, where there were claims of negative energy. I think, the most negative one was when I investigated old college that actually the Exorcist case took place. And so that was definitely pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. And how did you declare that it was so you took it upon yourself to call in someone to do an exorcism because you felt that it needed it, or were they brought in to also investigate to feel that it did need to be exorcised?
Well, it was the case that is well known as the Exorcist case. So if you've ever seen the movie The Exorcist,
yes,
I got to investigate the college that was involved in that case.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I've never personally seen an exorcism. I've never been involved in an exorcism. But I'm not discarding anybody's beliefs or anything like that. I definitely believe that there are certain situations that can carry a very negative energy.
So what do you do when you come across cases like that, and you really feel that it's a very negative energy, and it might need more than just what you can do? What do you do in that circumstance?
If that's the case, then I definitely would turn it over to who I feel would better to deal with that situation. So more capable So maybe clergy would be the situation that I would probably turn to.
And how many homes have you, or how many clients have you had where they did actually do an exorcism?
None.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's good. What now? Do you feel that all the houses are haunted, or do you feel that some of the clients may be haunted?
I think it's mostly probably clients.
And
A lot of situations, it's as I've always put it, when I teach courses at colleges, it's 1 out of 10 cases that can provide some sort of evidence that there could be something paranormal going on. So as we've learned, it's all about being at the right place at the right time. And so for me, my biggest thing is, I don't ghost bust. I'm just here to document encounters, document what we experience as a paranormal group, and hopefully, publish that and educate people, educate ourselves, educate the clients, and have everybody have a better understanding as to what's going on. Because, one of the things that we find in this field, and this is one of the reasons why I'm writing Psychology for the Ghost Hunter, is psychology does play a major part in this. A lot of that is people tend to scare themselves more than what the ghost might be trying to scare you.
mm-hmm.
Because, we're taught to fear this phenomena. It's out to get you. It may even hurt you, and it may even kill you. So I think that fear dissipates when people have a better understanding of the environment, of what could be occurring. So I think we do a great service by at least educating people as to what's going on.
There are more than just ghosts, I believe, involved. There are shadow people. There are really dark entities. And in these cases, have you found that in some of and from the shows that I've done, I've found that Ouija board seems to be always involved. Have you found that?
No, actually. And that's one of the things that we ask our clients as well. It's on the interview questions, if they've ever dabbled in anything in the paranormal, and, if they've ever played with a Ouija board. And a majority of them is like, no, we don't even have one in the house.
Wow, that's interesting, because most of the shows I've done on these really dark stories and entities, that there's always been a Ouija board involved. Now, what about shadow people? Have any of your clients ever encountered a shadow person?
Oh, yeah.
And
in
so
fact, I've seen a shadow figure moving around.
Oh, I've seen one too.
Oh, yeah.
But what do you do for your clients when they say, I see shadow people, or one of these spirits come and they'll can possibly sit on top of you and get right in your face and scare the heck out of you and paralyze you? Have you come across that?
Yeah, definitely.
And so what do you do? What do you do for your clients when that happens?
Well, a lot of that is, again, trying to have a better understanding as to what's occurring on the property with themselves, and then take it to the next level. If we find that there is definitely evidence that they're truly experiencing this phenomena, we are going to go out of our way to get them in connections with the right people. Whether they want to have a cleansing of their home, that's fine. Whether they want to have clergy come in, we'll definitely forward them onto those people as well.
Now, Ross, how can someone get help if they encounter shadow people in their home? How do you get help for that?
Well, my belief when it comes to shadow people is, and again, this is me, or this is not running a cult or anything, but I think when it comes to shadow people, I personally think it's another form of apparition. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that believe that they're a separate entity, but my thing is, I've always go with what you know and not with what you think you know. And so we really try to simplify everything that we're experiencing and we want to have that better understanding. So I think, when it comes to, shadow experiences, I really want to find out what is the root of that. Why are people experiencing this? And what is it? Well, again, I just think it's another form of apparition. But again, that's me. So we would just go on to the normal process of dealing with a normal haunting.
Ross, what about some other strange encounters that these people might find happening in their home? What other experiences are there?
Well, there could be problems with electricity. There could be things moving around, things disappearing. There's problems with plumbing that have been reported. There's nightmares that have been reported. Even to the simplest as feeling a presence, like when you're alone, and yet you get that feeling there's somebody standing behind you or watching you. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things that makes paranormal research so fascinating, but yet so complicated, is because there's just not one thing that's gonna label a place as being haunted. There's so many different combinations out there, so many different things happening. So it's a process of determining exactly what combination is happening on these properties and moving forward with that.
Now, Ross, my mod's name is Royce, and I keep wanting to call you Royce. I'm sorry. In your book, you say that there's 20 ways to communicate with spirit. Now, do you think that the houses that you go to and the families that you help, do you think that they really should communicate with the spirit?
Well, I find that, with the attachment to a person, place, or thing, that communication is going to be a big thing. Because in most cases, I find that maybe the spirit just has a message they want to pass on so that they can move on. In fact, we've had cases very similar to that where we were able to determine what that message was and the activity completely stopped. In fact, one case was a very fascinating one. There was this young couple living in an apartment, and they were experiencing, phenomena from the fact that, the guy would come home, throw his dirty clothes on the floor, jump in the shower. When he got out of the shower, his clothes would be folded, and his dirty clothes would be folded and on the bed. The young, girl was actually experiencing her closet door opening and rattling. Strange lights would be seen coming out of the closet. And so it's just kind of, interesting things like that were happening. So, of course, when we did our investigation, we also, do work with psychics. And we brought in a psychic. And the interesting thing was that the psychic, did pick up on something pretty amazing. Now, the history was that a young man had committed suicide by ODing. And he died in that apartment. Now, we found out that this was true. We were able to, pick up the records of his death, and, even the ambulance call that came, and they, removed his body and everything. So we did determine that, yes, there was a young man that had died in this apartment. But what was interesting is the psychic did pick up on this young man. And, we also, found out that he had died of an overdose because just that day, him and his girlfriend had a fight and they broke up. So, possibly decided to take his life.
That's too bad.
Now, the psychic picked up on all that. She said, yeah, there was a young man here, there was a young man that died. But she said it wasn't a suicide. She said that he was just partying too hard and just overdid it. And once she said that, and we were able to pass that on to the family, the activity completely stopped. Because I think here is a spirit that, everybody thinks that he killed himself. And it's like, no, I didn't kill myself. I didn't mean to. I was just having a good time and didn't know when to stop.
Oh, wow.
I think a lot of times it's that message that they want to pass on. Maybe there's something they want to tell their loved ones. And I think once you can retrieve that message for whatever means, using a psychic, maybe EVP, maybe you can help that spirit to move on. And I think a lot of times just communicating, I don't think that we have the ways that we can communicate with each other like we can with the living. I think there's lots of gaps in there when it comes to communicating with the spirits, a lot of confusion. And so I believe it's almost like a counseling session when you're communicating with the spirit in some cases, to help them to understand what might be occurring, what they're dealing with.
So what do you do? Do you sit there and talk with them? And okay, so do you use a voice recorder? How do you record your communication?
Well, definitely, I would use some type of recording device, and I would just sit there in a room that you believe is the most active room, and just sit there and have a conversation with whatever's there. And hopefully they can hear and understand you and communicate to you the best way that they can through EVP, and you can start to build that communication and help them to move on and have a better understanding for both sides of the party.
All right, then besides a digital voice recorder, what other equipment do you use at that time when you're trying to communicate?
Well, for us, we definitely are very high tech. It's one of the reasons why, with my group of ghosts, the Advanced Ghost Centers of Seattle, Tacoma, we use, from thermal cameras. We have a spectre system that does all kinds of, readings of the environment, from temperature, from, sonic, from, lights, EMF, because our main thing is we want to support these experiences that people are having. So if we can have that communication with the spirit, it's great to have EVP. It's great to have that communication. But let's validate that, yes, this is an EVP. We're not, just in a room with a bunch of people talking and somebody decided to whisper in the corner. We want to validate that experience. So, we want to make sure that, okay, if we got a spike of EVP, what else happened at that moment? Did we get any temperature fluxes? Did we get, anything with light? Anything that we can to document the encounter.
What do you think about people today are using ghost apps? They're using what are those, ghost boxes, and they're getting responses. What do you think about those?
Well, as I do talk about in my book, my haunted journal, I do try to educate people on the fact that unfortunately there's a lot of devices out there that might make it fun for ghost hunting, because yes, you get an instant response, but unfortunately this is where the psychology comes into play, and it's so easy to produce false evidence, suggestive evidence. With the ghost box, this is a prime example. If anybody's not familiar with it, this actually, produces a lot of sound. And so it's so easy to be throwing questions out there, and you're already trying to process what the answer could be through this random noise that comes at you. Now, granted, the science behind it actually is validated, because, it was reported that ghosts were known to communicate through radio stations. So, yes, I believe that that's valid. I think it's very possible that these spirits could use radio frequencies to communicate to us. But I don't think it's happening as often as people claim when they're using these devices. Because here's a prime example. As I said, I teach college courses on ghost hunting. And I was always very fascinated with the ghost box when it first came out. I'm like, this is great. It's very interesting. Is it possible? So I ended up taking 3 hours of recorded cycling of the ghost box, going through its cycle. Then I set up my students in a supposedly haunted room, and I told them, we're going to be listening to this ghost box, and I want you guys to ask questions and see if you get responses. Now, they didn't know that what I was actually playing was pre-recorded.
Oh.
So the problem is yes, they got the responses they wanted. because they were listening to this random noise. And there was a couple hits that were pretty interesting. I was like, oh, yeah, I can definitely see and understand why you think it said that. But unfortunately, this was pre-recorded. So again, it just goes to show that it's so easy for us to manipulate our own thoughts, because you want to believe that, yes, there's a ghost in this room, and yes, it's going to be able to communicate to me through this box. Now, I'm not saying that the ghost isn't using a ghost box. There are some pretty interesting responses that people have gotten by using it live. But again, I find that unfortunately, it's too suggestive, and it's so easy for folks to just pull out random information out of the cycling and say, yes, this is the ghost. Now, going to the apps.
Oh, can you hold on for 1 second?
You bet.
Royce, will you take a few questions for me and send them to me? Thanks. Go ahead, Ross. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's all right. Now, when it comes to phone apps, unfortunately, there is a lot of them out there that are designed for entertainment purposes only. And so people are unaware that a lot of these will manipulate you by putting in audio when you're using it as a recorder. So there's been a lot of those out there that will sit there, and when you're doing an EVP session with this app, it'll actually put in a voice that'll say, get the hell out of here, or I'm right behind you. And so when you play it back, you're freaking out, thinking, oh my God, there is a ghost here. Little did they know that this was actually the app for its entertainment purposes. Same thing with photos. There's a lot of apps out there that will put ghosts in your photos. And a lot of these, photos are circling all over the internet with these great stories of, true hauntings, and here's the ghost, when unfortunately it was actually created by an app from somebody's phone. A lot of these apps that produce, words, they don't know that they're using voice recognition. They're using GPS. And so that's why they're able to pull words from your surrounding area, or words that you might have said out loud, and they'll repeat those words to you. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, there are far too many apps out there that manipulate the ghost hunter into believing they're experiencing something paranormal when it's not at all.
Now, do you think that... now, you've also stated that there are steps to living with this paranormal activity. And would that be a case where you can't rid the paranormal activity, and you tell these clients that they need to deal with it and how to deal with it?
Well, one thing I should make clear is it's extremely rare that a client wants us to get rid of the ghost.
Why is that?
I think there's some excitement in the idea that you're living with a ghost for some of these people. And so a lot of times they call us in just to find out who this is, why they're there. Now, granted, if there's somebody there that is wanting us to get rid of the ghost, hey, we'll definitely pass you through to the people that we think might be able to help you with that situation. But a lot of it is, most people, I think, enjoy that lifestyle, living with a ghost. And they don't want to disrupt it, because maybe they're there for, they just love the house, they love the family, and they just want to be part of that. Mm-hmm. And that's great. If they want to live in that lifestyle, that's great. But go ahead.
No, go ahead, honey. What else did you want to say on that?
Well, I was going to say, I think that we've done, in our history, we are the oldest ghost hunting group in the Northwest. And throughout our history, we find that we've been so successful in just educating our clients. And I've always told them, the three things that you need to be aware of is, acceptance, acknowledge the fact that there's a ghost here. Who is it? Well, if you're not sure, give them a name. Make them part of the family. And then, of course, setting some ground rules. And this has helped a lot of clients as well. I told them, if you're uncomfortable with the situation, but you don't want to rid the spirit, you want to give them their own, area, do it. Make a list out. Say, okay, we know you're here. We love having you here, but all we ask is that, please, abide by these rules. And they'll put out the rules that they feel that'll make a great, living environment for the both of them. They'll say, maybe you can come out and do all the haunting you want after, 10 o'clock at night when we've gone to bed in our sleep. That's great. Here's a chair in the room. This is your chair. You can sit in this chair all you want. Or please don't, rattle the doors or open the doors, when we're here at home. If you want to do it when we're gone, that's great. You do it all you want. And then you have to have this level of respect. And I think a lot of that helps as well. Don't provoke the spirit, treat it as if it's a member of the family. And I think a lot of clients have done that, and they've been so happy with the results.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about ghosts, and I have actually I'm starting a show with my ghost story, and I already have a viewer that's going to come on the show, and his story is horrendous, and I've heard so many of these really bad stories and things, awful things that are happening to these families, but that's another story. And now another thing is, you say there are 3 simple rules for controlling your ghost. How can you control a ghost?
Well, I'm not saying definitely you can control it, but I'm saying that these could help in that situation, and that's exactly what I just shared with you. Is acknowledging the spirits, and setting the rules. And then just being respectful. I think those are the 3 things that will create a more enjoyable environment for anybody who believes that they're living with a ghost. And again, these are environments where they're not threatened by a spirit. I'm not saying if you're living in an area that there's definitely harm being brought upon somebody, definitely you're going to want to, go a different route. But these are just experiences where people have already lived with the haunting for a few years. Now they just want to understand what's going on, and they want to continue on with that experience.
Awesome. All right, so we have some questions from the viewers. Let's see. First question from April Fagan. Ross, have you brought anything home?
Have I ever brought anything home? Are we talking about a ghost?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Have you brought anything home, and if so, do you know what it was?
I brought a pizza home the other day.
No, they're talking about a ghost. Silly.
I know. Honestly, no. I've been doing this for close to 30 years now, and I think the reason why nothing's followed me home is because I've always been respectful. Whenever I go into somebody's home or property, I'm going to be respectful towards that property and towards that spirit. I think if you're going to be disrespectful and taunt the spirits and provoking them, then yeah, they're probably going to be, and I hate to say this, but a little pissed off, and you're like, yeah, let's take care of this later, I'll find out where you live. So I think that's a situation where you might find that things are probably following you home if you're going to be, pursuing ghost hunting in that direction. But in all honesty, I haven't had anything follow me that I'm aware of.
Next question, Beat 3 Airspace. Ross, what is your most haunted experience?
Oh. I always get asked this one, and this is one of my favorite stories to share. And I know you had asked about the most negative experience that I've had, and this is the story. All right. Now, I lecture at colleges and universities all over the U.S. And when I do my lecture, after the lecture, I'll take the students on a ghost hunt of the campus. So I was invited to St. Louis University. Now, St. Louis University is where the Exorcist case took place. And so they took me to the building that the boy had actually stayed in. Because if you're not familiar with the case, the story is actually about a little boy, not a little girl named Linda Blair. So I campus, was brought to the building, and this building at the time of the exorcism case was owned by the church. The church has now sold it to the campus, so the campus now runs this building. And so they're taking me through all the different floors, and there was nothing unusual about it, especially with all the campuses that I've been to. But I finally, they took me to the 4th floor. And to my surprise, the 4th floor was completely abandoned. I mean, there's graffiti everywhere, holes punched in the walls. It was a mess. But it was really huge up there, a huge space. And I was thinking, gosh, campus this size, you'd think they'd be utilizing the space for something. And the students look at me and they say, oh, they haven't been able to use this space for quite some time because of all the problems. And then referring to problems as, the paranormal stuff that seems to be happening up there. So, they're telling me a little bit of the history, and of course, when the church owned it, on that 4th floor, there's a lot of little rooms, and a lot of those little rooms are where the nuns actually used to live. And then there's these huge rooms up there, and that's where they actually used to teach Sunday school. So I'm going through, all these, different rooms, and, we're, trying to, contact the ghosts that might be there. And they take me into this one room, and they said, oh, this is the room where apparently a nun had committed suicide. And I'm thinking, oh, that's great. Not that she committed suicide, it was a good lead. So we go in, we're trying to do some readings there, and we continue on through all the different rooms. And I walk into this one room, and right when I stepped into this room, I heard this crunch underneath my feet. And I looked down, and I realized I had stepped on a dead bird. Now, that wasn't unusual for me, because anybody who's ever done any ghost hunting and has ever been in an abandoned space, you tend to find that animals get trapped and they die. So I, wasn't shocked by this. I just kind of kicked it over to the side so no one else would step on this dead bird. But what shocked me is when I shined my light through the rest of the room, it was just filled with dozens and dozens of dead birds. They were all over the place. Now, I had been through most of the 4th floor by this time, and I hadn't come across any dead animals until I found these dead birds. But what made this even more interesting is security had removed all the doors on the 4th floor. And the reason for this is because they've had problems with students constantly sneaking up there to scare each other. So it just made it easy for security when they had to make their rounds that they didn't have to, open and close all these doors, so they just removed all the doors. Well, now I'm realizing, gosh, all these birds died in this one room. Why did they choose this one room when they had access to the whole 4th floor? Come to find out, this is the room that the boy had stayed in. Now, stories have it that they had performed multiple exorcisms on this boy, because the belief was that they couldn't perform a full exorcism on the boy in the church because this could possibly kill him. So they would perform these exorcisms on this boy in various secret locations before they finally finished it at the local hospital. Well, I am realizing that I'm now standing in a room with all these dead birds, knowing that an exorcism had been performed in this room. So creep factor has gone up a little bit here. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the things that I do when I'm taking these students on a ghost hunt is I actually give them some of the basic equipment that we use for ghost hunts. So I turn them into little ghost hunters. And so, of course, as they start to collect in the room with this basic equipment, we're in this room for less than 5 minutes. When all of a sudden, all the equipment goes off at the exact same time. Wow. We're talking, the temperature starts to drop in the room, and it's dropping rapidly, so quickly that I'm thinking at this point I should start seeing my breath anytime soon. And we're all feeling this. The EMF detectors going off like crazy, and we can't find any sources of the EMF readings. And then, of course, the compass. It's spinning around and around and around like crazy, and it will not stop. All this is happening at the exact same time.
Wow.
So I'm floored. I'm like, oh my God, this is really happening. So to really prove that we're experiencing this, a picture's not going to do it. I have to film this. So luckily, my camera does video, and it also films in infrared. So I switch my camera over to video, and I start filming everything that's going on. I'm filming the equipment going off, and it starts to slow down a little bit. And I think, okay, before it stops, let's try for some EVPs. So the students are being absolutely quiet. I'm asking questions into the air. And I finally asked the question, can you tell me whose room this is? Now, there's about 15 seconds of silence. And then all of a sudden, I start to hear crying to the left of me. And I turned and I realized that a couple of the female students have started to cry because they're so terrified being in this room. So I realized, okay, they're uncomfortable. I have to admit, I'm a little uncomfortable because I don't have my normal ghost hunting team. These are just college students. So I decided, safety first. Let's go ahead and wrap it up, and we'll move to another place. And hopefully I'll come back and do my own little investigation later. So we finally finished up, and I had finished my lecture tour, and I got home, and I started going over all my evidence that I had collected at all these campuses. And I finally got to that video. And I got to the part in the video where I had asked, can you tell me whose room this is? Well, I got 2 responses. Now, I'm going to edit this because I don't want to offend anybody. But the responses I got were, F you, it's mine. Yeah.
Wow. All right, next question. Taco Jan 21 Gaming. Question, what is the most dangerous thing about paranormal activity?
Well, I have to admit, I've been doing this a long time. I've traveled all over the world. I've been in some of the deepest, darkest places that you can imagine. And it's never been terrifying for me. I've never been, so scared that I can't continue on with the investigation. But I think the most dangerous is probably going to be going into a place that you believe is haunted and being disrespectful.
Okay.
Because if you're going to go in and, again, I hate to say it, but piss something off, you're asking for trouble.
Okay, awesome. Now, April Fagan asked us almost the exact same question as she did previously, and it was, has Ross brought anything home with him, and if so, what, and what did it do to make itself known? And you already stated that you didn't have anything come home with you.
Right.
Okay, so we'll move on to Zippy.
Not to bring my homework with me, or not bring my work.
Well, you're lucky nothing's come home with you. You're lucky because when I used to paranormal investigate, they came home with me.
All right.
All right, so...
one of the things that I do want to clarify a little bit more on that, I do find that also folks who tend to be a little more sensitive or psychic might attract that energy. And, of course, in some cases, they could follow you home in that situation. So I believe that could happen as well.
Oh, they do.
I don't claim to be psychic or sensitive. So, again, I just go in, be respectful. And I also, too, one of the things that I also tell my team is, before you go into a haunted location, always make your motives known. State it out loud. So right before we enter the property, we'll stand at the front door and we'll say, thank you for allowing us to be in your space. We just want to let you know that we're not here to mean any harm. We're just here to communicate with you, and we hope that you will communicate to us in return. And then once we're done with the investigation, again, right after we step out of the property or right at the front door, we'll say, again, thank you for allowing us to be in your space. We hope you took the time to communicate with us. We do ask that you stay here. This is where you belong, and hopefully we will return.
Okay. From Zippy Davis, why are spirits so prone to dolls?
To dolls. Well, I think a lot of that is emotional attachment. I think when you're dealing with a situation like as we put in our other book, Haunted Toys, in some cases, a lot of toys absorb a lot of that love and attention. And so dolls being a more common toy for children, I think a lot of times those children put a lot of love and attention into that toy, and that toy can absorb it, and there's this bond, this attachment that doesn't break even after death. It continues on.
Okay. From Christina Healy, what do you think of TV ghost hunters and taps?
Well, one of the things that I always make clear is you have to understand that a lot of these television shows are meant to entertain the audience. So you can't always believe what you see on TV. Now, I've had the opportunity to be on Ghost Hunters, and I've had the opportunity to work with Jason and Grant many years back. So I believe their intent was true, but you also have to understand that in that situation, when you have a television show, you don't always have control over the show.
Absolutely.
You don't have control of what the audience is going to see and hear.
Absolutely.
That is all in the control of producers and the director.
Absolutely.
So if they feel that they have a better story to share for the audience to keep them entertained so that they're not going to change the channel, they will do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I know this because I've been on a lot of the shows. I've signed those contracts. They've made it very clear that we have the right to manipulate the story in any way we want to satisfy the audience, even if that's going to make you look like shit.
Absolutely. You know? It's entertainment. They need the ratings. They need the ads on their shows to make the money.
Exactly.
It's not real. It's not real.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I was interviewed for a show, and I worked with the show for 2 days while they were filming. And when they interviewed me for my experience, the director was like, that's great you had that experience, but can you make it scarier? Can you tell us that you'll never come back to this place again because you're so terrified? I said, no, I can't do that. I said, I'm a well-known ghost hunter. I don't need to go on national television and say, I'm too scared to go back into this place. And funny enough, my part was cut from the show.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt, Ross. All right, another question. Super Onion Master. Ross, have you ever been physically harmed by a spirit or maybe mentally attacked?
The only thing that I can claim as a physical experience, I should say, was when I was doing an investigation at Alcatraz. And again, this was before all the ghost hunting shows and the popularity of ghost hunting, because my group goes back to 2000, before the television shows, and so it was a little easier for us to get into some of these high profile places, and we were actually had the opportunity to do Alcatraz a number of times. And so it was really cool because when we did Alcatraz, they took us to places that at the time weren't open to the public. And one of those places was the morgue, where they store the bodies before they're shipped to San Francisco. Now, if you're not familiar with Alcatraz's history, it actually started out as a military base. So at the time, before it became the morgue, this area that they took me into actually used to be where they stored the gunpowder because it's underground.
I've seen
so they
it.
can keep the gunpowder cool.
Absolutely, yes.
So, it was really cool to get a chance to explore this, area. Now, I'm the first one to go in. I got my team right behind me. So I go in and I, walk into this room, and it's nothing but, brick walls, brick ceiling, and dirt floor. So I make, my way into the room, and I decide, I want to get a picture of the entrance, but I want the widest angle, so, I need to back up. So I start backing up to get the widest shot of the entrance. And all of a sudden, and at this time I should point out that the investigators, my team is coming in, as well. But as I'm backing up, somebody puts their hand on my shoulder and physically stops me. And so I turned to apologize to the investigator that I felt that I had backed into the corner. and there was nobody there.
Oh, awesome.
I felt the weight of a man's hand. I felt the pressure of fingers. I was expecting to see one of my members standing behind me saying, "Hey, you're about to step on me." And there was nobody there.
Wow. That's awesome. I love those experiences. I love them. Awesome. All right, our last question. From Nancy Soplavita Ross I think she's saying, how old were you when you had your first paranormal experience?
Oh, gosh. My mother tells me that there was an experience I had when I was a kid. I don't remember it. But, she seems to think that my fascination with ghosts goes clear back to that. I think it's just because I had a kooky mother that loved ghost stories. But otherwise, I'd have to say that my experiences really started coming out when I started to actually investigate. When I was a kid, I was fascinated, a teenager, I should say. I was, fascinated with the ghost books. Hans Holzer, all kinds of these books, the Warrens. I had their books. I was reading them. I was fascinated. I was going out in cemeteries with a cassette recorder, trying to capture EVPs. So it started, as I can remember, clear back to my teens, being fascinated with ghosts. Me and my sisters used to play games like, we're out to see the ghost tonight. Just all kinds of stuff like that.
I have one last question for you. And, Alicia Mata, I see your question. And, I meant to ask Ross that as well. So I'm going to ask it. What was the most haunted location you've ever been to?
I've been to so many amazing places that have been reported to be the most haunted in the world. But, I've been throughout Europe, some castles, in fact, we're getting ready to go back and do some this year. But for me, I'd have to say the most haunted, has been the Seattle Underground. For me. And that's because I have access to that location, almost on a daily basis, because I own a small section of the underground.
You own it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We actually have a section of where I do Spooked in Seattle ghost tours. We actually have a section of the underground that we take our people on the tours in the dark.
Oh, I love it.
So for me, being in some of the most haunted places in the world doesn't always guarantee me to have an experience. I'm not saying that it's not haunted, but I just didn't have the experience there. But to be in a place on a daily basis and be able to collect evidence that has been amazing, that we share on tours and share, in the lectures and in books, that to me proves to be, more haunted for me, because I am able to encounter those, unique experiences more often than I am to experience something in a haunted castle in Britain.
Well, you've written a book on haunted Seattle or Washington, right? What's the name of the book that you wrote?
Spooked in Seattle. I did Spooked in Seattle. I also did Tacoma's Haunted History.
Wow. So there's some pretty haunted, scary locations.
Well, it's surprising because Seattle is the youngest city in the country. Washington was late to bloom in all of this. So to be in a more younger city, it was interesting to find that I came across a number of hauntings to be able to write a book on haunted Seattle. Because Seattle does have its fair share of unfortunate events as well. From the Depression, from the Gold Rush, all kinds of interesting history led to a lot of the hauntings that happened in Seattle.
Wow. Okay, so Ross will be back with us with David Weatherly on March 2nd. They've written a book. I'll show you they've written a book, Haunted Toys, and I'm really excited to have David Weatherly and Ross. David Weatherly's been on my show many times, and they will both be back on March 2nd. We will talk about haunted toys. Tonight was on My Haunted Journal, and Ross is also coming back. I'm taking Ross over, and he is coming back on April 20th, and we're going to be airing a show on ships and lighthouses, which I've always wanted to do a show on. Well, Ross, Hey, thanks so much for being on the show tonight. It was a pleasure to have you on. I can't wait to have you and David Weatherly back on the show. Again, Ross's website is www.aghosthunter.org. You can find out.
It's aghost.org.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
A ghost. A ghost.
Just want to make sure we correct that. It's aghost, aghost.org.
And his books can be purchased on Amazon. He's got quite a site, and I'm sure you really will enjoy looking at his website. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. It was a really pleasure to have you. Thank you.
Anytime.
Thanks, honey. Good night.
Good night.
Hey everybody, thanks again for being here tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'm really excited to have him come back and do those other shows with us. Also next week, I want to remind you that guess what? Coming back is Unsolved Mysteries with Vanessa Hogel and Rick Wade on the 16th, Missing Persons. And then on the 23rd, I'm so excited. Steph Young from the UK, he has written a book called Into the Woods. So this month is going to be really awesome, and I hope you join us again on Thursday, same time. And so let's do a couple of, let's do some shout outs before we end the show. Again, I want to remind you can sign up, and I think Royce also shared that with you. You can sign up for reminders. Thanks to my mods, Royce. Please, everybody, Royce is not doing well. His health is really bad. Please send your positive and prayer energy and prayers to Royce. And also thanks to my sweet Annie, Unique Annie, for being a mod as well. Crystal has taken a break. She's got some issues at home. And let's see. Jimmy Cortez. He's going through some difficult times. Please send your well wishes, positive energy to Jimmy Cortez, as well as Tommy. Was it Tommy Rogers? Remember, he used to come in all the time. He's got kidney issues. So anybody that's out there, please pray for those who have joined us before in the past. Send your prayers for anybody who needs them. I'd really appreciate it. So let's do some shout outs. Aaron Brody, Starry Night, Janet Wolf, Bridget Willis, Tiger Jan, Junebug, haven't seen you for a while, Sean Bodine, Bridget Willis, Zoe Small, Alicia Mata, Chippa. Anybody else want to shout out? We had a nice crowd tonight. Miller, B Singer 11, Brandy Keller, thank you. Beat 3 Airspace. I know David Coffin was in earlier. Yvette Sanchez, thank you. I'm really looking forward to the remaining month. Aether Shadow, TW Studio, X Group Home Kid, Nancy Soplavita, Super Onion Master. Yes, you got it. I See Lies. There's my Unique Annie and my Royce. Oh, and also Tammy, Spirit Finder, has really need your prayers as well. Princess Patricia, Princess Patricia, Susie Randall. Anybody else want to shout out before I go? Oh, Andrew Cox, there you are. Sidell. I did, honey. Super Onion Master. Shout out, please, Noreen, if you have actually influenced my life in so many ways with your channel. Thank you so much, honey. Elaine Michael, and I know Carl White was in. I saw him. Elaine Michael, you can't escape me, Carl White. I know you were there. Anybody else want to shout out before I go? Hey, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. And Valentine's Day is coming up, and I'm so excited. My husband's going to take me out to a French restaurant, and I'm so excited. Maria Sandra Amador, Angela Rodriguez. Wait a minute. X group. Oh, I said David Coffin. There you are. Sean Days. Anybody else want to shout out? Did I miss anybody? There you are, Carl. No matter what time, he's in the UK and he watches every Thursday. Christina Healy, Angela Rodriguez. Anybody else want to shout out before I go? Okay, group hugs to everybody. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here with me every Thursday. I really appreciate it. And hey, pass the word along. Share the links to the shows. Let's try and make our chat room grow with more nice people like I have with you guys. Love you guys. Group hug. And I'm going to say goodnight. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you so much. Again, thanks to my mods. And don't forget to send prayers, love, and healing energy to all our friends who need it, okay? Thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you.